Fred is the example of why me and MJ would not get along. Because Fred was a fucking bully.
Yo.
And I try.
Yeah. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my
Well,
mind.
anyway, let's get this bitch started. Okay, good evening. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 3 to Tango podcast under the 476ers. There's too many umbrellas. It's under the 476ers, but that's under the Broadview umbrella. So we have all the umbrellas covered. We're here to talk about episode 5 and 6, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 5 and 6 of The Last Dance. So let's get into it. So let's start with episode 5. Episode 5, the most fire soundtrack. The soundtrack of episode 5 is like any hip hop playlist I have on Spotify. I mean, I wrote down some of the songs here. It kicks off with "If I Ruled the World." I mean, which is just, you know what I mean. Then it goes to whatchamacallit. I didn't write the right name. I never know the right name of the song. The "Can I Kick It" by Tribe Called Quest. Which that's not the name of the song though. And then it goes Special Ed, I Got It Made. Black Sheep, The Choice Is Yours. Rosa Parks when he goes to Atlanta. Is just fucking fire. So it kicks off with that essentially. You know what was kind of weird about episode 5? I didn't write down a theme. I didn't really recognize a theme in episode 5. There was a clear theme in episode 6 that we'll get to, but episode 5 seemed to be on its own. It was just kind of like the height of his powers. You know what I mean? It's almost like a lot of these episodes, it feels like you can't have one without the other. Which it now kind of makes more sense why they're putting out 2 a week, because episode 5 shows that the height of his power, and episode 6 almost shows like the dark side of that, I guess you would say. But it's really, I mean, episode 5 is encapsulated with all the best music of that mid-90s. I mean, the only thing is missing is like playing some Wu-Tang, which is also weird because, as you guys know, MJ kind of hates hip-hop. He doesn't like rap.
I know, and that's why for some reason I feel conflicted about it. Like they integrate so much hip hop. I'm like, yo, what does he listen to? You know,
No,
like what's he listen?
I read that he likes Jay-Z. Is the only thing I've read is that he'll listen to Jay, which almost sounds too like that sounds scripted to me.
Yeah, he might like Jay-Z as a person.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely cool with Jay-Z. That's a fact. But then
sure.
Jay-Z's also the person that gets put in Miley Cyrus songs. Like he transcends like hip hop. You know, he's different.
And when it comes to celebrity, those are like those people that you say. Like when you say, "Oh, I like rap," that's what like most people who don't even know anything about rap, that'll be like the first person that they could think of. You know what I mean? Like that's a token rapper, because now he like transcends. Now that him and Beyonce, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and as you know, even to that point, MJ is almost that same side. Like if you ask a rapper who doesn't know shit about basketball today, they'd say LeBron, but back then, oh man, I love MJ, man. I want to be like Mike. May not really even know shit about it. Real quick, before we go forward, speaking of rap, do you hear music playing?
No.
All right, I'm going to shut it off anyway, but I'm playing Drake's new album, which is fucking fantastic, and I don't give a fuck what Christian said about it. Let me just pause that. So
I got to give it more listens. I listened to all the way through once. A few of them I really like, but I got to give it more.
I'm going to be honest with you. It's been playing in this apartment nonstop for 3 days.
Yeah, of course it has. I've been in your car where you listened to the same song 4 times.
Yeah, I posted that on.
Wait. Hold up.
Consecutive.
Oh, no. You're not going to. No, because you did that with Flatline and it don't count. Okay, go ahead.
No. Tangent. Tangent to
you're going to compare a fantastic Drake song to Petey Crack and Beans, and it's not finna work.
First of all, that was... I always got roasted by this gentleman over here about how I listen to songs like 1,000 times. You posted... I think you even said that on social media, that you listen to the same songs over and over and over again. So I see some hypocrisy. And it doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter who. I could have been listening to classical music like Beethoven 100 freaking times. It don't matter. You're doing the same thing.
You done?
Yeah, I'm done. Go ahead.
You're not finna play Flatline
Okay.
And compare that to Drake's Controller. That's a fucking masterpiece, and it's a happy song. I can't listen to Flatline over and over again, Fred,
because you ain't a thug.
You're right. You're right. I'm an emotional thug. All right. I cry and shoot you. You know what I mean? But you want to listen to Flatline for 100 straight times. That's going to make me too aggressive. I don't want to be that aggressive all the time.
It don't matter. It don't matter.
That's the problem with today's youth is this aggressive music, and that's why MJ didn't listen to hip hop. It's because of people like you listening to Flatline or Jim Jones' Diary of a Summer on repeat, which was a fantastic album. But that's not the point here.
MJ didn't listen to hip hop because he was born in North Carolina.
I mean, there wasn't a lot more.
I mean, he could have been listening to Petey Pablo or something.
I don't think he wasn't out there.
Yeah, he wasn't even around.
He could be listening to J. Cole, I guess, in a weird future. You know what I mean? Somehow.
Yeah. 60s, man.
Yeah, but this brings up and I don't want to get too deep into it, but I mean, I'm going to because you know what? Let's jump then to. At the end of the episode,
the sneakers, Republicans
buy sneakers too. Yeah. And it paints an interesting picture of what MJ was, which I don't think people really understood. When people met AI, they were punched in the face, and they thought AI was an exception to the rule of these type of people that grew up in the inner cities and played basketball and were using the sport as a method to get out. But they didn't realize AI wasn't the exception. He was really representing a larger population than I think people understood. MJ is from, and this is, I can't judge anyone's blackness or anything like that. It's not my place, but he was kind of more from that, like Bill Cosby, like I think to a lot of people was this an acceptable black person. You know what I mean? So like a very large portion of popular culture, like, oh, this is an acceptable black person to us. Whereas when AI was at his height, to a lot of people, that's why you had so many of like the more racist fans that just didn't want to watch basketball anymore, because it was like, well, they just didn't want to see him expressing. Well, MJ was more of this acceptable black person, and that statement, Republicans buy shoes too, I think is in some ways encapsulates exactly how MJ presented himself and was presented to America by the NBA.
Yeah, no, it's a rough statement, and he proposes that he's, it was something that he said kind of like in jest, and whatnot, and you could see like that, a lot of people were counting on him, and he didn't want to take that step. So, and it's funny, like when in the interview with Obama, you could tell he was trying to gently, like, say that he was disappointed.
Yeah.
In MJ, and I think, and I understand why a lot of people were. I just think, and this is not an excuse for him. It's actually what he said. Like, he just wasn't involved in any of that. Like, he wasn't an activist. He wasn't gonna be on the front lines. He didn't know. Like, he probably doesn't know a ton of things that were going on in the world. Like, he was all about himself, really. That's what he said. And so, and part of it was business. I think part of it, he was right. Like, why am I going to say something and risk what I've built, So, it is a disappointing thing. I mean, that would have elevated Jordan even more. But on the same token, there's a part of me that says you shouldn't be forced to have to do something you're not comfortable with. You know what I mean? And people will bring up Muhammad Ali, and but like, there's only one Muhammad Ali. You can't have 1,000 Muhammad Alis. And then you have other people who, who, in my opinion, like, you have like dudes like Eric Reed who are really like gung ho. But then there's like no, he's very abrasive to even other people, and as far as like working things out.
Yeah.
And so, there's like all these different lanes that people go through, and Jordan just didn't want to be a part of it. So, I'm still disappointed that he could at least done that, and I think that would You know, especially what was that in North Carolina?
Yep.
Like, you know, it's not like it's like, you know, the most populated place. Like, you know, maybe if he had the numbers, he would have realized like, look, you know, that probably won't affect your you know, your sales at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's disappointing, but then again, I'm like, he's his own man. He could do whatever he wants to do.
It's very complicated. I thought about this a lot, in particular, like with disappointment, and like that feeling and what it comes from, and disappointment is really like what you feel when someone doesn't meet your expectations that you have of them. And I'm not sure it's always fair to impose those expectations on other people. So like but in saying that, I still am a little disappointed just because of also who I am as a person and what I think I would have been able to do in that situation if I was him. I do think it would have hurt his persona a little bit, but like, he's Michael Jordan. And like, I know hindsight is 2020, but he was still going to win the rings. He was still going to be the MVP and the scoring champion. Like, eventually his play, like it always did, would have outshined anything in his personal life. But I don't know. I don't know if it's, like I said, I don't know if it's fair to give him criticism, to say he should have done something. I think it's okay to say, I wish you would have. But I think this conversation should be more in the other way, where we celebrate the guys who do these kind of things.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you don't have to, and I can't force you, but you're choosing to do this anyway, which is awesome. And honestly, I'd rather you be, you know, one way or the other than the back and forth you get with some of like more of today's athletes.
Yeah.
Where like they say one thing and then the next time they talk and they realize all the people they pissed off and then they walk it back.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're going to be about your money, great. And a lot of these guys do a lot of really good things with their money. But don't be both sides.
Yeah. No, dude. And it's true. Like kind of how what Vic was saying in the beginning of what he was saying, that he, like, we expect a lot from people. Like, literally, you know, one of the, I can't remember if it was in the second or the you know, in episode 5 or 6, but you know, when they're just showing like just the demand, like people would just come up to him, and you know, like, you know, I don't want to say like being a celebrity is like woe is me, but you know, people will judge you for every single thing you do, right? If you don't tip them like $1,000, you know, for your meal, like, oh, he's cheap. You know, everyone's looking at you. If you don't take pictures, you know, if you're just, you know, if you're with your family and you don't stop to, then they think you're an a-hole or something like that. And that's a big thing, man. People expect a lot of these athletes, and some they're just regular dudes. Some of them don't want to be part of the conversation. What he's saying is, you celebrate the guys who do. Like, Jordan is never in that conversation, right? Nor should he be, and nor will he ever say he should be in. Like, he'll never say, "Oh, I should be with the likes of," you know, even a Colin Kaepernick or whatever. Like, he will never be in that lane. But he's the greatest athlete, you know, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, if not the greatest. And everything he did was to become that, and that's it. Like, that's all he was about.
Correct. He wanted to be the greatest basketball player of all time, and that was all. But I think there's a couple sides to this, and I don't know where I land, if I'm being honest. One thing I was thinking was, I kind of was like, what could you reframe this if you looked at MJ and said, when he said, well, Republicans buy shoes too, where he could have maybe felt like, oh, you guys don't call me for anything, but all of a sudden you want me to come help you for an election. You won't support me. I don't see you guys speaking about me publicly or helping my image in any way, but now it's election time and you need me to come help. Well, Republicans buy shoes too. You know what I mean? Could he have some sort of thought like that? I think one of the worst things that happened to him, and I always bring this up, is kind of what happens during the lockout. 5 years ago now? is, you know, you kind of find out that in the meeting, he's one of the owners that's essentially trying to take power away from the players. And it, you know, when you look at this 2020 and you put this in the scope of that, you almost think, well, maybe he is conservative. Maybe he's just conservative in his beliefs, and he knows how damaging that would be to just come right out and be conservative. Who knows? I do think, though, that does he deserve criticism? I don't know. But I think that in a world when you see injustice, or if you know that there's injustice within your community and you have a platform to speak, I don't want to say it's as harsh as it's your responsibility to do it. But people having expectations of you doing it is fine too. Like, for example, if MJ got pissed off and said, man, fuck your expectations of what I should do, that would not be a fair reaction. He can't be angry that people have expectations of him. Listen, you're a young black athlete coming off of the country is still very racist, but you know, you're coming off the heels of like Jim Crow 20 years prior or whatever it is when you come into the NBA. You know, some of your heroes are speaking out. Bill Russell, guys you would have looked up to. You know, people are going to have expectations, but
yeah. And you know, no, and you know, I can't remember who said this, but it was like an activist of some sort, and he was saying how that you need those type, even though like they might not be as active, you still need those type of people in your community that almost that are bigger than everything. Yeah. So, you know, you need like the you know, the Oprahs, the Tyler Perrys, you know, the Michael Jordans, that though they might not be like an activist, you know, in regards to some of the things that you kind of have like a more extreme side to, they're people who they bring the culture forward. Yeah. You bring a black face into that TV set, you know, and that is doing a part. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's different lanes when it comes to, you know, getting our country kind of like on the right foot. And you know, and honestly, I don't think Jordan had any of that in his mind, but he just said, I'm a basketball player. And some people are completely, when it comes to stuff like that, they're like, yo, I don't know. And they don't want to speak on stuff that they don't know. Yeah. You know, and but like when they're showing the clips of that white senator, I was like, dang,
this motherfucker is a racist. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm not saying that schools are going to be segregated, but I am saying that white people are going to be allowed to send their school wherever they want to.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, I'm like, that I don't think you had to be that, you know, like even informed to be like, you know, and then, you know, you can't really blame, like, well, you know, could he have swung it? You know, that's, you know, neither here or there, you know, like what, you know, he could have endorsed, and then what, all the racist white people would be like, well, Michael Jordan, you know, is, you know.
But it'll, you know, I think what it does do is it wakes up those minds that aren't paying attention. You know what I mean? The guy who is watching basketball but isn't paying attention to politics. And then to backtrack real quick to what Vic was saying about expectations, this was a realization I had a few years ago about LeBron. Like my problems with LeBron when he left Cleveland is completely due to my expectations. You know what I mean? We expected him to be the next great athlete, the next storybook guy. And listen, in some respects, he's had a storybook career. Yeah. But we wanted him to stay. That was our expectation. Same thing goes with KD. The difference is KD constantly pisses me off. It has nothing to do with expectations. He just constantly is pissing me off. But you know, whatever. It's just.
And here's the thing: when we talk about the social media world, I think Jordan would have still now. Could Jordan? There's more eyes, more people with phones and stuff like that. Could Jordan got nabbed doing some like extra shady stuff? Yeah, maybe. But I'll tell you one thing: Jordan ain't going to Twitter. Like that dude is like tight with his information. Like he don't like to give interviews. On the other hand, you know, these guys are making shows like talk shows, like YouTube shows and whatnot. where they're just having conversation, kind of what we're doing now.
Yeah.
But they're more of an open book. So that's why we were able to get annoyed with them, because they're not just shut. How some people say shut up and play basketball. It was just like you're hearing their thoughts, you're hearing all the stuff that you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
That's annoying from a human being. You hear them whining and all that stuff. So I think that's kind of where we see Jordan kind of built up Jordan's like almost like God image, because you don't hear like the little banter, that you just kind of know that like stoic figure that we know.
Yeah, not a lot of bullshit. And we'll talk about social media more in episode 2, I think. Well, in episode 6, I should say 6. Yeah, in episode 6, when we talk more about the gambling stuff. But yeah, he doesn't. I don't know if he, much like Kobe. Now it's very hard to say. We'll talk about that shortly. I don't want to get too much into it. All right, let's move on real quick here. And hey, Tony showed up finally.
Told you.
We've been waiting.
I told you.
Listen, Tony didn't want to show up. It's not even a question in my mind. And in fact, I was actually surprised that Tony's English wasn't more polished. It seems to me that Tony spent a couple years here on the Bulls, got traded to the Sixers, gets traded from the Sixers to Atlanta, and then went back to Croatia. He had enough. He said, I've had enough of this fucking country and I'm done here.
My man was already an adult when he came here. It was not like he learned as a kid.
No, I know, but I don't know. It's just the picture I painted of him is someone who did not enjoy his time here. And it starts with with his time with the Bulls. I am glad though. We jump into the 92 Olympics. I don't even know what to talk about first here. So many things to unpack, but I'm glad that they showed the second game, the second Tony game. Because it showed exactly what Tony was. Now, me and Vic did the podcast last Friday, and I put out that clip of us talking about Tony Kukoc, because Tony was a very in today's day and age is painted as a completely different player. I don't think people understood what Tony could have been back then. Offensively, he could have been, almost like Scottie was to the Bulls, running the offense. And like I pointed out last week, there's a reason why Phil drew the play up for him, because he knew he was capable. He was a capable dude. They play the dream team. I found it actually, before we go there, I had a thought, a little realization watching the episode yesterday. And this is all going to make sense in 1.5 minutes or so. MJ, we were supposed to see MJ be painted badly. Now, I don't know if he's being painted badly or not, because I haven't seen anything that I didn't already know. You know what I mean? I'm not disappointed because, I knew all this stuff about MJ. So maybe to the more lay fan, they're seeing stuff that they didn't know about.
Yeah.
And this is a bit of a hot take, all right? To me, Scottie is not looking great. All right? Let's run it down. Scottie signs a bad contract.
Yep.
Okay? He signs the contract. That's bad business on him, right? Mm-hmm. He gets so pissed off that he starts essentially cursing out his employers, then gets so pissed off at one of his coworkers, Tony Kukoc, a prospective coworker, that he wants to make his time in the Olympics as fucking terrible as it could possibly be. And then when the MJ retires, which we're going to see next week, I'm sure, is I'm not going to come into the game if I'm not getting the game-winning shot. Where does Scottie look good here? I don't think he looks great. I think it looks worse for Scottie than it does for MJ right now.
That's interesting. I think Scottie is so much and probably will forever always will be being Michael's shadow, that people aren't thinking as deeply as that. But as you said, for a lot of people, it's either like the nostalgia of growing up with it, which like for me, I was born 91. Like none of this happened in real time for me. For you guys, like what, 85?
72.
84.
I'm sorry,
Fred. And like, so like it's a bit more like in your lifetime, but not like for these other people. Like these sports writers, like, oh man, this time was so great. For almost everyone else, it's like, oh, he might actually be good as people are saying. He might actually be that good, but he's so stuck in the shadow. And what everyone always says about him is so complimentary, and it's mostly about his game and the willingness to be Robin. But Yeah, imagine in 2020, a guy gets hurt and he's like, I'm not gonna get surgery in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems petulant, is the word. You know what I mean? He seems petulant to me. I don't think he looks great. I mean, Dennis doesn't look great. But again, so this also brings me to another idea that I don't. How much has MJ been? If like again, this feels like a propaganda piece to me. It's just like, yeah, I'm gonna look bad in this documentary, showing you how fucking competitive and psychotic I was about winning, and it's gonna make me look bad. But it almost doesn't feel honest. Like it does. You don't look bad yet. You know what I mean? Like you
I
said.
think it looks bad.
How do you think he looks bad?
It's like whenever there's a clear, I think when people's dreams of like what they see a team is like almost everyone's kind of equal, and where you look at this basketball team, and Jordan is cocky.
Mm-hmm.
He's cocky with everyone. Like it's the banter that is kind of like off-putting, and it's like banter that I think we all would have. But when you see someone that you don't really know that well talking like that, it gets annoying, right? So seeing like even just the way like Jordan, like he has his own like little room, when they show him just like getting ready with the security guards, like there's like this like almost like this royalty thing. You don't see him a ton with like in the locker room with his other teammates, right? He's always kind of like separate, and it just seems like he has, he knows he's the dude, and he comes off like, I do feel like he comes off cocky and arrogant, which I mean he can, but it doesn't feel humble. Like, I don't think he has like a humble thing. And I think that's what annoys a lot of people. People don't like cocky people. So that's where I think like he comes off. Like I don't see how you wouldn't think that he's like that.
I think for you, Brian, as being a much like deeper and broader NBA fan, like you were saying, this isn't new. Like Michael being psychotic is not new.
Right.
But for fans who know him as the guy who used to be really good in sneakers, it's like, oh, he was a fucking dick. When Randy Brown asks for the tickets, and he says, I don't care if he can sit next to God, I need tickets for this person.
Yeah.
It was definitely a chick he was trying to, you know what I'm saying, later.
Yeah.
Mike says, what? And he's like, oh, you just got those tickets from God. Imagine 2020, LeBron says that, and a sports writer puts that on Twitter. People are going to lose their shit.
Yeah.
That LeBron James is comparing himself to God. Oh, it's not a maybe. It's facts.
Yeah, because the thing is, and I knew Jordan was like this. It's just that, like, I heard about, the fights and, how crazy he was in practice and all that. But when you see it, it's kind of even more, you're like, dang, he's kind of like, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things where I think they're really humanizing him, right? Like, here's the thing. When you have that, like Mike's song, when you have a choir of children playing, and that's almost like, it's almost like churchy, right? And it's like, like, it was like, that now, if that were to be done now, it'd be cheesy. But back then, it was such a, like, uplifting, like this type of thing. That's, in real time, that's how people thought Jordan was. Like, it was like he could do no wrong. And you liked him so much that when you did hear about the gambling, you were like, like, it's not that big of a deal. Like his thing, so you would make an excuse for that.
Yeah, you're willing to brush it aside.
It's just not now. There's just so much footage that you're seeing now that, you're kind of like, he is kind of cocky. You see him like drinking beers in the lot on the table. Look, I had a 2 VHS set of Michael Jordan. That was a propaganda joint. Like that thing would have me. I was eating it. I was like, I was part of that church, and so like I told that I used to watch that thing all the time. But like this is really kind of, I think even now, me being a kid, this is taking off some of that, like that shine off.
I will say that though the director said last week that episodes, the last 4 episodes are where things hit the fan.
Okay.
So it's supposed to start picking up. But I want to go back to Tony.
Mhm.
So I firmly believe that Tony Kukoc would have had, like, statistically a better NBA career if he would have went to another team.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Of course.
being part of the Bulls nucleus is like he had to sacrifice so much to play with Michael and also Pippen, who was essentially their point guard.
Yeah.
Even though it was like a motion-based offense, so nobody really dominated the ball except Michael in some cases. But because that's his position. He's that small forward. He's the point forward who's going to take some shots, set up offense. Like his highlights of like passing and like obviously they didn't shoot a lot of threes, and we've talked about this over and over again. Then in relation to now, it's like a different game.
Mm-hmm.
But had he have gone and played for like someone like Don Nelson in the the mid '90s, we remember Tony is a very different player. Now he doesn't win anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's for certain. No one else is going to win in the '90s except for a few Houston, whatever. But statistically, though, he would have been a different player. He probably would have made more All-Star games and things like that. I would be interested to know. And obviously, we probably won't see Tony Kukoc again because he didn't seem really interested to be in it as much as he was. But I'd be interested to see if asked, like, would he trade his rings to be like the guy, to be the Michael or the Scotty on another team? I wonder what he would say because and we're gonna see it now because the next week's episode is gonna be the Steve Kerr thing and all that other stuff. We're gonna see how in practice he would come at his fucking neck just cause sometimes.
Yeah, just cause.
Just cause because he's like, if I'm not shitty to him, as soon as somebody says it to him in the game, he's gonna lose focus. He has to get used to being bullied. And I'm gonna be that bully. I don't know if he ever like loved being a Chicago Bull.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of us would have loved it being in that situation either.
No, I definitely would not have responded well to MJ.
Yeah, no, you would have got traded the next week.
Immediately. And then I would have tried to fight him the next game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's funny because I remember like when I heard about how crazy, I'm like, dang, like my man went through like this war-torn country and they're gonna abuse him like this, and then they actually said that.
Yeah.
But then it was also like they're like, he got his ass handed to him, but then he was just like, okay, all right, now I gotta. He just wasn't prepared for it, and he said it, and he's like, okay, give me the next game, and then he made a commitment like he wasn't gonna back down, and they said that he's pretty good.
Although I do wonder about that though too. I was thinking about this at the time, and I love to shit on people for whatever reason. I'm a fucking hater, is what I am.
Yes.
When they said that, all right, whoa. Relax. All right.
Relax.
Those are facts.
What do you mean, relax?
Those are facts.
That's.
All right. We done? We done here? All
I'm
right.
just agreeing with your point. It's a good point.
Whoa,
no, but you don't agree that fast. No one needs to agree that quickly about my hate.
I will.
Okay. Fred is the example of why me and MJ would not get along, because Fred was a fucking bully, and I tried to fight him every week in high school. So that's the truth.
And never ended well.
No, and I've always lost, but I would still try to fight. All right, so I kind of, this is me hating. Is it also possible that Scotty and Michael felt like they made their point and probably took the feet off the gas a little bit in that second game?
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Maybe. But Michael's not normal, so you can't think of him
you can't
in
be
normal
sure.
terms.
Yeah.
So like.
Well, but also, okay. So real quick, not to cut you off, but let's reframe his non-normalcy, right? If you take, and this is jumping ahead a little bit, but if you take what Simmons always says about Michael leaving that first retirement, right, is that he didn't have the carrot in front of his face anymore. He was over it. He, had proved his point. There was no longer a hill to climb. Well, couldn't you paint that picture here? Oh, we've made our point. We've dominated this dude. We're going to win this gold. This kind of, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's not normal, but if Kukoc gets off from the first game, then I think that means in the second game, MJ scores, like 60 points. in a fucking Olympics game. You know what I mean?
Maybe, but I think his father's passing, it has a lot more to do with him
For sure.
retiring than
I agree.
just the carrot thing. And it definitely plays a part, but
Yeah, I think
like a bunch of other dudes on that team who could have locked Tony Kukoc's ass up. I mean, just the help defense on itself would have just been too much. So and like I said, he was a really good player. We don't remember him in that way, but he wouldn't like Dirk is ascended to a different level.
Mm-hmm.
But what we thought about Dirk for most of his career could have been Tony Kukoc.
Oh yeah. Dirk's the until the championship, Dirk is soft and a choker.
But a guy who can get you buckets.
But we literally just celebrated the 8 seed Warriors beating the 1 seed Mavericks in, was that 2007, 2008, whatever year that was.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and now, okay, so let's take a step back. So we saw Tony. That makes me happy.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Tony's alive. I thought he was rolling over in his grave all this time. But Tony is alive and well.
Might be.
He might be.
Might be.
Who is rolling over in his grave is Clyde Drexler. So let's go back in time a bit before the Olympics, which we forgot to talk about. This is exactly why. So let me go step back a little bit even further to our conversation just now about why I don't think MJ looks that bad. The worst thing that is not showing MJ. Why can't I speak English right now? The thing that is not casting the most fondest light upon MJ's legacy currently is that his banter with his teammates seems mad unnatural. You know what I mean? It seems like it's that banter when it's like, I don't fucking like you and you keep joking around with me. You know what I mean? That's what it's more like an uncomfortable laughter. I think that doesn't look good. Right. But when you go back and look at what happens with Clyde, and I can't remember if they pointed this out in last night's episode, Sunday night's episode, because we already knew this, and I don't remember if they actually talk about this specifically, but Clyde's career takes a significant dip after this.
No, they don't in the doc.
Okay, so we've had this conversation obviously, and this is, you can look this up. I meant to look at the stats. That's like, I could name a podcast. I meant to look up the stats, but I do this every fucking episode.
Well, he drops like 10 points in '93.
Yeah, per
game.
Yeah, correct. He dropped significantly. There is an honest conversation. The 3-point shrug is a couple of reasons. Like they pointed out, one, because people were saying could Clyde and MJ were on the same thing. But one of the arguments was that Clyde was a better 3-point shooter than MJ. That was an argument that people were using to try to make the comparison close. Well, as MJ is one to do, he took that exact comparison, and that's why the 8 3-pointers in the first half happened. It's not just the 6. I'm sorry. It's not just because he wants to shit on Clyde as a player. It's because he's saying, "Oh, you're supposed to be a better 3-point shooter than me, right? Bet I'm gonna now beat you by shooting 3-pointers." This game,
setting a record.
And did they talk about the 2 left feet? I can't remember the 2 left shoes.
They did not.
There's the story that happens in the Olympics, where Clyde shows up to practice with 2 left shoes. And Pete, now some of this is legend, it's become myth, and who knows, but we know that some of this is true. So some people attribute him showing up to 2 left feet because he had just been so thoroughly wrecked by MJ that he was like suffering from PTSD essentially, and shows up to practice with 2 left shoes, puts the 2 left shoes on because he doesn't want MJ to find out he's showing up with 2 left shoes. So he practices with 2 left shoes the whole fucking practice. And MJ finds out anyway and roasts him. You know what I mean? And essentially Clyde is never the same.
Yeah, 92 is the worst. It's probably like the worst year of his life. He probably like sheds tears over that still.
Yeah, and but listen, because this is the story. This story is the reason why we were saying this about Tony for the last few episodes. Are we sure Tony's going to show up? Because we know what MJ did to Clyde. We sure Tony was with MJ a lot more. We sure he wants to show up to this shit. I don't think he wants to relive his time with MJ.
Well, I was listening to the Zach Lowe podcast like 3-4 weeks ago, the week before it came out. The Last Dance came out. It started, and he's interviewing Patrick Ewing and Jeff Van Gundy at the same time. Okay. Really awesome interview.
That's dope.
At the end, he's like, he's going through basically the Knicks series we're seeing now, and then later on. But he's like, oh, are you guys like excited to watch? You can watch your families. And they're like, why the fuck are we gonna watch this shit? Like, we lived it and it sucked. Like, why would we do this again?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm not watching any of this shit.
Yeah, and this is always, to me, what's always going to point the picture for MJ being the GOAT, because there are no players after MJ that have a story like this to tell. You know what I mean? And it's I don't want to shit on LeBron, because we talked about that, but LeBron being the next GOAT or the next guy in line, even Kobe. Let's go to Kobe. How many players got off on these dudes in their prime and can say that they got one up on them? You know what I mean? There's too many players like that. There is not a player from the MJ era. These players all occupied, especially when they did the 50 greatest, all of these I mean, I don't even know, 10 players in the top 25 were all playing at this time. Not one of them can say they got one up on MJ. Yep. I mean, shit. Even to, so we get to the practice, you know, I'm jumping a little bit back and forth here, but even in the practice, MJ is staring down the most recent greatest player of all time in Magic, and Larry is there too, and he's getting one off on them. He's in a gym with 10 of the greatest players of all time, and Shaq should have been there too, but they pricked fucking Christian Laettner for whatever dumbass reason. And maybe that's why Christian Laettner had a gambling issue. I'm sorry. Christian Laettner doesn't deserve that. And MJ gets one off in the practice too. You know what I mean? This is why MJ, to me, is the GOAT. You know what I mean? Because there's just not another guy who got one up on him. So, I mean, I think we covered everything pretty much about 92, right? Is there anything else, anything I'm missing here?
Well, I think was the episode 5 where they talk about the sneaker deals, right?
The sneaker deals. Yeah. Let's talk about that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So it's very interesting because, like they were saying, Phil Knight and Nike, because Phil Knight and I forget the guy, the co-creator of Nike, they were both track guys. They both ran track at Oregon, University of Oregon. So they originally started the company to make better track shoes because they're like, these shoes are trash. So
Nike is the goddess of speed. I think the Greek is a Greek goddess of speed or something, which is why it's called Nike. Anyway, sorry, not to interrupt, not to get to whatever.
Yeah. So, but you know, like they say in the doc, right? Converse has that dumbass rap commercial with basically all the best players from the 80s. I mean, even Dr. J wore Converse. Michael loved Adidas, right? And it's funny they didn't put Sonny Vaccaro in this episode. He's a plays a huge role in getting Michael to sign, but also is like a huge figure in Michael's professional life, period. So I'm interested to know, like, if they don't get along anymore. It seems like everyone who's close to Michael at some point stops being close.
Yeah, because they make it seem like David Falk has more to do with it. And I mean, not to say that David Falk doesn't have a lot to do with it, but to your point, I mean, there's a whole 30 for 30 about Sonny Vaccaro. Yeah,
and like in everything that I've read, like it was his suggestion. So like with Sonny, he's the guy that started, well, one of the guys who started like all-star high school camps and like games and stuff. So he has all these like ins with college coaches in that way because they start coming to him and say, hey, who do you like? Or who you got coming to the game? Who you got coming to the camp this year? And Nike, he ends up actually kind of like creating his own job with Nike, saying like, hey, I can help you guys get ins with college coaches. So it's really, really crazy that this stuff was happening. And they can't do it now. But at one point, Sonny Vaccaro was coming to, you know, and we talked about this in our pod before, but paying college coaches $5,000 to get their stuff outfitted with Nike rather than, you know, Converse, Adidas, or whatever. So at some point, he was making Nike so much money, they were like, all right, fine. We're going to give you kind of a real job now. So they had a $2 point something million budget, and their plan in 84 was to spread that among some of the top draft picks and sign them to multi-year deals, giving them, like, I don't know, $50,000 a year or something, maybe even less. And the story goes to Sonny Vaccaro, and he said this on live and TV all over the place, So if it wasn't true, I'm sure somebody would have said them by now. But he goes, give it all to this kid. Give it all to Michael. Like, this guy is going to change everything.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job in the doc. They're talking about how, like, trying to make Michael, give him an identity away from the Bulls or the NBA as just being this amazing athlete.
Yeah.
And then essentially he lays the foundation for everybody else. And to the point where now everybody who comes out is just getting these crazy deals with the hopes that they're the next Michael Jordan. But the sneakers were always tough. Fred, what was your favorite? My favorite was my favorite is the 5s.
You're right. No, my favorite are the 11s, Concords. Those were my favorite. And you know what? With that said, you know, one thing I kind of think about is, especially because, you know, when you see like people like businessmen like LeBron or any of these dudes with these deals, you know, you see like they're doing so. It feels like players now are a lot better prepared business wise than people before, like in, you know, in those 2000s, you know, especially in the 2000s, right? Because they were reckless.
Yeah.
You know, like they you know, you could now, there's so much stuff just based on like, hey, how'd you spend your money? Like when, oh, well, I got to escalate. It was like all the typical stuff. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, and some of those players are still playing, right? So like Chris Paul, so like I think he bought an Escalade, like, you know, those type of things. But you know, it's crazy to see how, like, you know, are these guys businessmen before? Like, could they reach, maybe not to this extent, but would they be good businessmen had they just started as a regular person, as a regular human being? You know what I mean? And Jordan, you know, knowing that a lot of this stuff wasn't Jordan's idea, you know, but he was kind of right place, right time. He had the right people around him. And with him being so competitive, took it, you know, and kind of ran with it. I mean, the fact that he wouldn't even go see Nike, like his mom is like, yo, you gotta do it. Like, you know, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Where I think now most people will be open to, you know, those things. But I mean, you see like so many guys going into business, LeBron, Curry, all that. And to see how Jordan at first was kind of like, didn't know what he was doing, and then all of a sudden just went off. It you know, I kind of, again takes a little shine off of Jordan for me. You know, that he is a businessman. But it's not like my man created, you know, Nike. You know, it was like there was other businessmen who saw what they could do with Jordan, and then Jordan, I think, took it and ran with it. So,
yeah, I mean, I think even to Magic Johnson's credit, I think Magic really. So MJ, if you wanted to look at what MJ contributes, especially to Black culture, not just even talking about the shoes, but in terms of a path for these athletes to become super successful, it's the shoes. It's the biggest thing that he's contributed. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's not spoken out on social injustices, but he showed how much a player can mean to an organization and how they can, you know, demand their money that they deserve, and also how to leverage that ability and power into these massive shoe deals. But Magic is the businessman, I think, of all the greats. You know what I mean? He's the one who shows how to really elevate a business. And then to LeBron's credit, this is where LeBron really, I don't want to say takes off, but this is what separates LeBron, man. LeBron, at an early age, kind of already knew what the deal was, you know what I mean, and was listening. That's the most important thing. A lot of these guys don't listen, and LeBron is from a background that's as shitty of a background as any of these players have been from. So it's not like he's just, you know, he came from a privileged background and was able to leverage his experience and his parents or whatever. No. He was just mad self-aware from a young age. He leveraged that. His ability to listen and learn. And he really, I think, is a big, big reason as to why a lot more players now are so business-minded. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't think KD is taking meetings in Silicon Valley if LeBron had not been doing things like this first.
But you know what, though? Let me speak on that real quick. The thing is, the amount of money that players can make now is way more
For
not
sure.
even just like inflation,
Yeah,
right? It's just that there's so many different avenues
for sure.
and so many more endorsements. Like people see that. So there's more ways that players can make money just off of their likeness. And they know that. So they're able to make mistakes and still
Bounce back.
bounce back, right? Because you got like some of these players, the lifetime deals.
Mhm.
You can spend all this money, make mistakes, pay for your sins, and be like, okay, let me get serious, right?
Mhm.
Whereas that I don't think a lot of players had that privilege back
For sure.
in those like early years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
I mean, because I'm pretty sure he made all the like dumb decisions. Like when it comes to those type of things too. But again, with him being so young and how the game was evolving, he probably had the right people around him. Like people were already grooming him. From like LeBron in early age. It's not like Jordan went into college not knowing what the heck he was doing. Like he just wanted to play basketball. He would have stayed in North Carolina this whole year, the
Yeah.
whole time. He just wanted to win.
Yeah.
Where that everything was very coordinated. And I think LeBron did get the people and people who were close to LeBron, brought the right people around him so he could succeed.
But listen, the thing is that I mean, he's coming into 2003 season when the early 2000s, late 90s almost mirror the late 70s and 80s, the cocaine era. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just that the late 90s and early 2000s are the too much too soon era, right? That's where the Stephon Marbury gets too much money too soon. Gilbert Arenas gets too much money. A lot of these guys get too much money and they're not willing to listen. That's really the credit I'm giving LeBron. He
Right.
gets the right people around him, but it's his ability to listen. You know what I mean? That allows a listen and learn, because there's a bunch of guys who had the opportunity to have the right people around them, but they didn't give a fuck. They didn't care. AI had the same, I'm sure would have had the same resources or similar resources, not the same, but similar resources, but was not going to be willing to listen. AI was just who he was. You know what I mean? So that's really the credit that I want to give LeBron. But to go back a second to the shoes, I mean, the shoes, this is really, I guess you could almost say that this is in a way the theme of the episode, because the shoes and the music are not accidental. You know what I mean? Them happening in the same episode this way is not an accident. Regardless of MJ not liking hip hop, the shoes represent hip hop, and hip hop represents these shoes in a way. I mean, they're in sync. You know what I mean?
Synonymous.
Yeah, correct. They're synonymous together. Hip hop, and Jordans are one and the same. They're in Do the Right Thing. They're in all the major black movies, Spike
Hood
Lee
culture,
movies.
period.
Is hood culture for sure. The only way you could have made this more New York is if you would have thrown Tim's on somebody. You know what I mean? And if somebody would have said son or some shit like that. But the Jordans and hip hop are the same regardless of MJ. It just shows how big MJ is, that the likeness of Michael. I mean, Biggie, shit, how long do you think it took before MJ even heard Biggie say, like Mike, Tyson, Jordan, Jackson? It probably took Michael Jordan 10 years. Biggie was long dead before MJ ever actually heard those lyrics, probably. You know what I mean? God rest Biggie's soul. And it just shows how something could explode onto its, almost on its own. You know what it's almost like? This is about to get really crazy. This is a real far one. I'm going to throw this like a boomerang and hope it comes back. You know what I mean? And then we're going to move on. But the way black culture, hip hop culture, the way we grew up, the way we symbolize or the way we view Jordans, right? The Jordan shoe, it to me is similar to how so much of the black population wanted OJ to be innocent. You know what I mean? They didn't give a shit whether he did it. It was the idea of a black man finally beating the justice system in America. They don't care about the details. And it's almost very similar here. Same thing with Cosby, where it's like, yeah, we love Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby hates you, though. He hated hip hop. He hates everything about you. You know what I mean? But because we're just going to represent our black heroes, it didn't matter. And that's kind of how I view the Jordans. You know what I mean? It's like, we represent them, but MJ doesn't give a shit about you. You should know that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? That makes sense, right? I'm not too far off here.
I mean, yeah, to a degree. I think the thing is, I'm I hope he realizes how much hip hop helped him. It's all you have to remember. This is like the early '80s. That's when hip hop is coming to its own, right? And hip hop is influential.
Mm-hmm.
Influential. It because you know why? Because they talk about material things,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, you don't hear like like an Anthrax song, and they're talking about like Gucci belt, like not really. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So what ends up happening is you have this music that's so influential, and it has like, a lot of it is bragging, right? That's how it started off. MC battling, brag who's the best, and then saying what they got, right? And you're like, oh, they're cool, and I need that. That just coincided with Jordan coming into the NBA, and coming with these sneakers,
Mm-hmm.
and then New York embracing that, and putting it in the music, and then you got everybody wearing Jordans.
Mm-hmm.
That's why like you could go down south or whatever, even in the 2000s, Jordans were those things that kind of eclipsed, like it, but people weren't wearing, when we were wearing Guess jeans, they weren't wearing Guess jeans. They were wearing some other, stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that were wearing, what's T.I.'s brand? He has a brand.
T.I. has a brand?
Yeah, bro.
What?
When you hear it, you'll know exactly what it is. But like, people wear these different types of stuff. But the thing is, New York and that time, hip hop was so influential.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what really made Jordan's pop.
For sure.
And
listen, they were fire too. They're fly sneakers. It's not like they're, you know what I mean? But you're right. It's hip hop that makes it go off.
Oh yeah. Because the thing is, like, I'll put it this way, right? And this is a known thing, right? I know like bartenders that would say like, like in hip hop, there's always like a liquor that everyone's drinking. Like there's like a certain hot liquor of the time. And so she said, like, when people were talking about Moscato,
mm-hmm.
like in songs, they're thinking it's like this like liquor
mm-hmm.
that's just, crazy expensive. So she said, well, what happened was, like, during the time when everyone was talking about Moscato, she would hand them a glass of wine. And she's like, yo, what the heck? Like, what is this? Because they were so influenced. People drink Ciroc.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because of hip hop.
Correct.
People drink, all F or whatever, all because of hip hop. Great marketing by those type of dudes. So it's just the influence that hip hop can do, and it just lucked out of being in that. If MJ would have been in the league a little stronger, a little earlier, could have that happened? I don't know. You know what I mean? And he lucked out with having some of the flyest shoes. Like, I don't know. Like, it's not like he was the one designing them joints.
Yeah.
What's his name? There's a lot of luck involved, and he was able to run with it, take it, and then not kill it. There's guys who are mush. They could have something nice and then they mess it all up. Jordan took it, used that competitive edge, and kept running with it.
Yeah. AKA Brian, have something good and fuck it up.
Yep.
Did you say yep? Okay. Man, I'm not appreciating the quickness with which you're agreeing. But yeah, as a callback to our previous episode, that's the outlier of this episode. You know what I mean? Which is essentially MJ kind of hitting the stride at the right time, hip hop taking over. I mean, listen, American culture is hip hop culture. You know what I mean? That is the truth. Everything you see on social media, all the dances, the TikToks, all of that is hip hop culture. You know what I mean? And hip hop culture is built on the backs of black culture, with some Puerto Rican sazon sprinkled in from New York. And that's why the Jordans are that. So real quick, before we jump into episode 6, let's play a game. It's not really a game at all. What do we think, or what would you be surprised MJ listened to? All right, so let's run him down. We know he doesn't listen to hip hop, but would you be surprised to find out that he's lying about that?
No. I mean, yes, I would be surprised. That I'd be. that if he said he did listen to hip hop,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, I would be surprised.
How about you, Fred?
That if you listen to hip hop,
Yeah, that he's actually listening to hip hop all this time. He's been fucking singing doggy style for 20 years now.
Yeah, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I'd be
Crip walking
surprised.
with gin and juice.
I'd be
Okay.
surprised.
Yeah, I'd be surprised.
Let's go 90s R&B. Would you be surprised if he was blasting Drew Hill and Boys to Men?
No.
No.
You would not be surprised.
Nah, because you gotta remember. All right, hold on. Is the question he got that shit on his Spotify playlist?
That's his go-to. You know, my go-to is Drake and Post Malone. What is
yeah,
his?
I'm aware.
Yeah. Oh, well, fuck you. What is Michael's go-to? What would you be surprised is Michael's go-to? Is the question we're asking. Kind of. It's
So,
evolving.
I would not be surprised that he listens to it sometimes. In most cases, though, like when he had a lady friend over,
Okay.
like just to be with the times and give them what they want. But if you're saying like he in the shower, I don't think he's singing Jodeci. No.
When he has a lady friend over, do you think he bets with them how long it takes for her to take her panties off? Do you think he makes a bet with his lady friend?
Sure.
He probably bets for sure. All right.
Oh,
How
yeah.
about country music? Would you be surprised if MJ was
Oh,
listening to
that's
country
his
music?
go-to though.
You think that's his go-to?
Yeah, and that's why we never hear about Jordan's preferences in music because he knows it's not cool to say that.
Oh, so he's Jimmy Butler is what you're saying.
Yeah, but Jimmy Butler is like not as he's not so.
And he's also a
He doesn't
cancer.
give a shit about his image. He doesn't give a shit about his
He's a
image.
cancer to the locker room. Fred, what do you
Yeah,
think
he's
about
no fun.
do you think MJ's listening to country music?
Yeah, I think he has a respect for it. I don't know if that's. I don't think that's his. I don't think
He has
that's
a
his main
respect for
thing
it.
though. I don't think that's his main thing though.
Yo, he's from North Carolina.
I think his main thing is Marvin Gaye.
Yeah, but the thing is, what you think every black person in North Carolina listen to country music? And
Yes.
the thing is,
Don't they listen to bluegrass technically? That's yeah, it's like a type of country music, but I don't think it's the same as country. It's not like I'm beating my wife and the cows come home or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Bluegrass is it's something different.
Yes. Yeah, it's like it's underneath the umbrella, as one would say.
Correct, yes.
of country music.
yeah.
But
So-
he's born in the 70s though, in
Right.
North, and not in the cities, not near
Yeah, it's
Charlotte.
in rural North Carolina.
No, he's in rural North Carolina. Like
He's been listening to people who have been bootlegging liquor.
Okay.
Yes. No, his family got money off being bootleggers.
I didn't even know that, but you see, okay,
He's
so
definitely listening to country music. Like that's not a question. It's
Yeah,
in-
but I don't think country music is the main thing. It's
I
not.
think
not
there's some.
anymore.
I think there's some Marvin Gaye on that playlist.
No, he got like Luther Vandross, like
got
all
Luther.
them old, like the Commodores. Like that's his twist right there.
You think that's his twist?
Oh yeah.
One day we need to fact check this somehow. We need to get close to Michael if we can.
Well, if not, if
All you gotta do is bet him, Michael. I bet you got the Commodores on your fucking iPod, $5, and he's gonna take the bet just because you
Yeah.
know. Which
And
is okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, and it's hard to think of that because like music is such an important part to sports. Like your pregame, like I mean, you see every player walk into the stadium with some weird outfit on and some headphones. They're I mean, granted they could be listening to podcasts nowadays, but for the most part, I think
No, it's
people are
music.
trying to zone out and listen to the music. And I remember that being so like when I was in high school, we were still kind of like part of the CD, MP3. It was like kind of right in the middle of that. But I remember like trying to make the perfect mix CD, and like I would never put a country song on there, and I like all different types of music, but I'm putting the hardest thing that I can find, like hard rock, rap, like
Bro, you from
progressive.
Philly.
I don't know what this dude, like what do these people listen to?
You from Philly, bro, and you played football, and you were a defensive lineman.
Yeah, but I'm saying I play basketball too, and I listen to.
Yeah, but
I listen to like all those things. I can't. No. What I'm saying is I can't relate to someone amping themselves up with.
Brian can.
Oh no, Brian is another animal. Like
Yeah,
that,
Brian wants
I
to
am.
cry. He wants to cry before he plays.
I need to have my feelings hurt. You know,
Yeah,
what
it's
I mean?
horrendous.
By lost love. You know,
Yo,
what I mean?
you know who?
You have no ear for
Oh, how
the
dare
right for the right moment. Okay. Yeah.
That's not fucking true.
It
That's
is
not
true.
true.
It is
Vic,
true.
tell him about my playlist. Tell him about my playlist. I make some
It
good
doesn't-
playlists.
No. You see that's where you're getting confused. I said the moment. You can have a banging playlist. I'm not saying you make a bad playlist. I'm saying you play that playlist at the wrong time.
That's not true. That's not complete.
Right? So plenty of time.
Listen, I don't play
Back
my
in the
workout playlist for you. Okay.
Oh no, yes you do.
But one time when we were younger.
No, there's been times where we were gonna go play basketball or go to a place where there was gonna be some sort of competition, and my man put either in CD form or in MP3 player form a soft ballad-driven playlist.
These are facts, man. These are facts.
And these are facts.
They're facts.
And you were notorious for that, and I couldn't take it, and I said, "Yo, let's change this up."
And that's why
You
that's
might
why I
make fun of
trash
me
you.
for playing.
That's why you can't beat me. That's why you can't beat me. That's why you can't beat me.
No, maybe that's you.
Because you
why
listen
will
to all
cry.
this aggressive music, and
Maybe that's you will cry at the.
maybe
during
that's
the
why I
games.
will cry because I'm angry at how much you're fouling me.
No,
That's
you're sad.
why
You're sad.
your angry music got you flagrant fouling me.
Your heart
I mean,
is tender.
The last time,
Your heart is tender.
Vic, let me tell you about the one time I
You
played
didn't.
basketball.
You see, the thing is, you didn't.
Let me
harden
tell you
your
about the one
heart.
time. Okay, good.
You need a heart. When you go to play sports,
Let me
you
tell
need
you
a
how
heart
hard.
in your heart.
Let me tell you
We're
how hard
talking
my heart
about
was,
love.
Fred. The last time that we played, probably in our most physically, because you can't fuck with me right now. I run you up and down that court. You don't stand a chance. The
You got
last
one game from me.
of fouls. I hit this man right here with 3 straight turnarounds. I was like Dirk out there, looking like Dirk in his fucking prime. And what happened was on the 4th turnaround, I'm setting him up. I've hit 3 straight. So I said, cool. I'm going to hit this turnaround. I'm going to hit him with the pump, and I'm going to go under and finish.
Yeah,
There was no chance because as soon as I went the pump, my man took me out of the air. Mr. Heart and Heart right here.
Yeah.
If that's how you play with your heart and heart, I don't want to play that way. You know
Well,
what I
okay,
mean?
so what I will, so the best comparison, and it goes with this theme, is my man is Tony Kukoc. And I'm Michael Jordan.
You are not fucking Michael Jordan. You get the fuck out of here. You're
wanna
fucking
come with that
Charles
soft
Oakley.
stuff,
You're
you're
fucking
European.
Charles Oakley. You're Charles Oakley.
You play
Actually,
basketball
it's
like
a
a
fair
European.
comparison.
And you're a peon. How about that, huh? That's
That
the
is a
rap.
that's a fair comparison, Fred. Charles
You
Oakley.
Whoa.
you a European.
You need to relax too. Both of you motherfuckers need to relax. All right.
No,
Well,
that,
you know-
that
you
would,
know
I'm
who
telling you. Let's
Michael
talk.
Jordan listens
Okay.
to. He listens to Billy Joel. That's his shit.
I wouldn't be surprised. But Fred don't like
That's
Billy
the
Joel because he's a fucking hater. Fred don't
Billy
like
Joel's
Billy Joel.
at work. What? How you don't like Billy Joel?
I
don't like
can't.
Billy
I
Joel.
can't. I can't.
Yes, you can't.
No,
You know
there's
what?
some
No.
songs
Let's
I
save.
like.
Let's save this. Let's save this for an ad odds. We're gonna do an ad odds podcast. Put that on the list, Fred. Mike and Ike's, which are trash, and Billy Joel, which is gold. Now let's move on. We're gonna talk.
Yo. Yeah. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhyme that are coming from my mind. Used to come in